Hey, I'm 𝗵𝗁𝗁 with 𝗪𝗁𝘁, and I'm going to walk you through how to get permission to put your hotspot pretty much anywhere. So what does it look like? We are going to have a plan to put our hotspot where we want it. The first step of that plan is going to be making sure we're putting our hotspot in a good place. So you want to make sure the hotspot is nice and high. It's got great clear lines of sight. It looks like it's going to be a great earning hotspot. We don't want to go through all the trouble of placing the hotspot if it's going to be in a bad location. So you can use Helium.Vision for that. You can use �lium_Explorer. You can use Hotspotty. I've got courses on how to understand Helium and use Helium.Vision on the 𝗪𝗁𝘁 site. But for now, I'm just going to assume that you have identified a site that you think is really good for you. So that's step one of the plan. Have a good site. And we'll talk later about maybe having multiple good sites. But for right now, we're going to focus on one good site. Step two is, who is the property owner? You've got to figure that out. It could be a buddy of yours. It could be the owner of a building. It could be the manager of a commercial building. It could be a land manager. Whatever it is, you've got to figure out who it is so you know who you have to talk to. The third step is figuring out what might those people want, right? If they're your friends, maybe they just want to see you succeed. If they are business acquaintances, maybe you can strike a deal with them. If it's like a hobby acquaintance, maybe you have a hobby, like I do. I fly paraglider, so I know people in the paragliding world. They've got places up high. Whatever it is, think about what they might want, right? If they want to help you succeed, great. In some cases that I've put hotspots in, what they wanted was access to sensor data. And so part of the agreement that I have with them is putting in sensor data that helps them understand their property better. In some cases, it's a mix of everything. They want some of the HNT, or they want some of the dollar, they want some dollar amount, or they want sensor data. Whatever it is, you've got to figure out what those property owners want. This is really about the humans behind the Helium. And it's not about the actual implementation of the deployment. Although, coming to that is we figured out we got a great place. We know who it is, who owns it. We now know kind of what they want. And now we think about, before we even talk to them about it, how are we going to go in and approach this thing? And this is really important, because when you go in and talk to the property owner, you want to be confident, you want to be competent, you want to be enthusiastic, right? And you want to know that you're going in to do a deal that is going to benefit both of you, right? However those benefits shake out, you want those four things to be in place. And in order to be confident, you have to be competent. In order to be competent, you have to have the plan. So let's say, I'll give you an example from one of my commercial deployments. I looked at the building. I have a bakery in there that contracts out some of the stuff that I make in another business. So I knew that there was a need for, or there's potentially a need for helium coverage inside that building to manage scales, weighing ingredients, right? So I had an idea before I went in of what I wanted to do with the helium hotspot. In this case, the building owner didn't really care about the scale thing, right? So I had this idea like, hey, we'll put these helium sensors on scales. We can weigh the ingredients. I know when I need to order more cacao butter or honey or almond flour or whatever it is, right? That business owner saw that as, hey, that's a cool idea, and that gave them a why to hang on to that was beyond just the money part, right? Sometimes the money is enough. Sometimes if that's what the property owner wants, great, that's what you offer them. But sometimes you want to come in there. A lot of times I want to come in there with something beyond just the money, with the reason to have it up there so that they can hang their understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing beyond just some transactional value of $150 a month or $20 a month or 20% or 80% or split on the HNT, whatever it is, right? You give them an idea and a framework to understand why it is that you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so you know who it is, you've thought about what they might want, you've prepared your pitch, and when you think about preparation, also think about knowing what you're going to do. So in that case, I had access inside the building because that's where my contracted bakery is. Sometimes you may not have that, so you want to go in there, and if you can talk to the front desk, or just think about where their router might be, where you might want to put your hotspot. Is it obviously, well, maybe not obviously, you want to put your hotspot up on the roof where it's nice and high and it's got nice clear lines of sight, all the things we talked about before. So you want to have a plan for how you're going to do that. You want to know what equipment you're going to use. You want to know how long it's going to take you, because you want to think about, what are the questions this property owner is going to ask me, right? They're probably going to ask, hey, whether they ask you or they ask themselves, is this person competent to do this? Can I trust this person to do this? Do I have to worry about this person damaging my property? Do I have to worry about whatever it is installing damaging any of the relationships I have with tenants outside or any of the services I'm providing? So you want to have all of those answers. And in that case, the property owner asked, hey, where are you going to put this? I'm going to put this on the roof. Oh, what are you going to use? I'm going to use a non-penetrating roof mount with a 23-foot pole made of 4130 steel. It's like, just have the details ready to go. A lot of times they don't care what the details are. They just want to know that you know what the details are, that you appear competent. In that case, said, hey, I'm going to run about 250 feet of Ethernet cable. I'll run it myself. I'll put it out through the same hole, the perforation in the building that all of your other power and utilities are coming out through. So there's no additional perforations in your building. I'm going to run it up to the roof, and you can uninstall this at any time. We can pull it off at any time with no damage to the building. So you want to think ahead about what that property owner might be worried about, the questions they might have, and have answers ready for that. Now, for some of you, you're not great public speakers. That's totally fine. You get to practice, right? It's not like if someone says no to you, it's the end of the world. So practice first on your buddies, your friends, your wife, your husband, whoever it is, and say, hey, can I pitch you on this idea that I'm going to go pitch this property owner on? And the first time, have them be really nice to you, right? And just give you good feedback. And as you go through it a couple more times, which is what you do when you practice anything, is you'll refine that pitch, you'll refine the questions, like how you're going to answer the questions that that property owner might ask you. And what I find is the more I prepare before I go in for any of these pitches, for any of these presentations, the more I prepare, the less questions they ask, because I've thought through the questions they're going to ask and I answer them as part of the presentation, and the more prepared I am when they do ask a question, so it looks even better for me. So even if they give me a question that comes out of left field that I haven't really prepared for, I've prepared everything else that I can think of, and I can pretty quickly think on my feet and say, okay, well, here's how we're going to handle that particular objection or problem or challenge or obstacle or whatever it is, right? So preparation is really key here. And then the last piece is when you go in to do it, is just practice having done it before. If you're doing a non-penetrating roof mount on a flat roof on a building and you've never done one before, set it up in your backyard first, right? Set it up in your shop. You've seen me set stuff up in this shop 1,000 times if you watch any of my other YouTube videos. Do the preparation so that when you go onto the building, you're not thinking, oh man, I forgot a tool, or I lost this cable, or I should have had this one thing, right? Do it all at least once at home or at your business or wherever you're going to practice the preparation piece. And so when you go in, if that property owner is watching you, sometimes they don't, sometimes they do, you appear to be what you've presented yourself as, is that you are a competent worker, you know what you're doing, you're not making giant mistakes. Sometimes we make little mistakes, that's no big deal. People have a lot of leeway for small mistakes. And you are reinforcing the relationship that you're building with them, which is that you are offering them some benefit, whatever that benefit is. I think that wraps up all the stuff that you need in order to get any location you want. I want to make it pretty clear that is, well, a couple things. First, don't be afraid to ask people for permission to get on their property. You will be pretty surprised by how many people will say yes. The second thing is don't be afraid to ask for permission to put it on their property for free, right? That's how I would go in with almost all these. And I would go in with a pitch about LoRa and IoT, and I would have an idea, if I were you, this is how I do it, I would have an idea of what kind of utility that hotspot is going to provide beyond just a dollar value, right? So whether it's tracking paragliders on a mountain, whether it's providing sensor data for soil moisture or counting the number of hikers on a trail, or it's running this scale project at the bakery, or whatever it is. If you're going into a restaurant, how many people walk through the door versus how many people park in the parking lot, maybe how many people park in the parking lot versus how many cars drive by, like whatever it is, just have an idea of how useful this hotspot can be. And I think if you walk in with those general concepts, you walk in like, hey, I'm going to ask for this for free first, just doesn't hurt. All they say is no, and I'll have an idea of the benefit that it provides. I think you will be massively surprised with how often you're successful when it comes to putting up hotspots in places that you might have never thought you could get permission to do before. Okay, I think that wraps everything up. I'm looking at my notes here and making sure there wasn't anything I missed. I think there is one more thing that you can do, going back to the property piece, that's really useful, is know your rent per square foot in that area, because typically what you can offer with the hotspot deployment is a much higher per square footage rent, and you can use that as just a negotiating piece. So as an example, let's say your rent per square foot is $1 a month or $2 a month or whatever it is. You're only going to use 6 square feet on the roof, so you might offer $10 a month, so it's $60 a month. That looks way better to them, and that also puts that rental piece in terms that many property managers are totally used to, which is a per square foot rental. Now, those numbers might be totally off for wherever you are, whether you're in New York or California or Texas or Mississippi or whatever, but just one more way to think about how you go in and how you prepare your pitch before you go in and do it. Hopefully this is super useful to you and you get exactly the hotspot placement that you want and you're able to contribute to the network and really provide great coverage so that we can all use this thing for what it's made for. Thanks a ton for watching, and please keep me posted on your deployments. Rock on. I'm out.